Almighty God, who in thy infinite wisdom and providential goodness has appointed the offices of rulers and councils for the welfare of society and the just government of man, we beseech thee to behold with thy abundant favor us thy servants whom thou hast been pleased to call to the performance of such important trusts in the Commonwealth of Dominica. Let thy blessing descend upon us here in this Parliament assembled, and grant that we may, as in thy presence, treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to promote thy honor and glory, and to advance the good of those whose interests thou hast committed to our charge, all which we ask in the name and for the sake of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Honorable Popon, your mic is on? Oh, okay.
Confirmation of minutes of meeting of Wednesday, 27 September 2023.
I beg to move that the minutes of the meeting of Wednesday, 27th September 2023 be confirmed as circulated.
Mr. Speaker.
It has been moved and seconded that the minutes of the meeting of Wednesday, 27 September 2023 be confirmed as circulated. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. So the meeting is confirmed as circulated. Before the presentation of papers, let us deal with the announcement first. Yeah. Please, sorry. So, Mr. James.
Announcement.
I would like to draw to the attention of the House that I have received a correspondence from the Office of the President, which reads as follows. The letter has on the top, Commonwealth of Dominica, Her Excellency Sylvanie Burton, DAH, President of the Commonwealth of Dominica. To the Honorable Sean R. Douglas. It reads, whereas, acting on the advice of the Leader of Opposition, the Honorable Jesper Paul Victor, under the provision of Section 34(1)(b) of the Constitution, you were appointed a Senator on the 13th day of January 2023. And whereas, by letter dated 6 November 2023, the Leader of Opposition, the Honorable Jesper Paul Victor, has advised that in accordance with provisions of Section 35(2)(b) of the Constitution, your appointment be revoked with effect from 6 November 2023. Now, therefore, I, Sylvanie Burton, President of the Commonwealth of Dominica, by virtue of the power and authority in me vested by section 35(2) of the Constitution, acting in accordance with the advice of the Leader of Opposition, Honorable Jesma Paul Victor, I do hereby revoke your appointment as Senator with effect from 6 November 2023. Given under my hand and the public seal of the Commonwealth of Dominica this 7th day of November 2023, and it have stamp there. Then further, I get a second one, sir. That is to Mr. Sean Douglas, signed and written by Donnell Blackmore, President Secretary. Directed to inform you that the President has, on advice of the Honorable Leader of Opposition, revoked your appointment as Senator in the House of Assembly with effect from 6 November 2023. The instrument of revocation is forwarded herewith. Yours sincerely, signed. So that was one of the major announcements. The other one I have there is I received letters from the Honorable Shakira Lockhart-Hippolyte and Honorable Vince Henderson, both seeking permission to be absent at today's meeting, and permission is duly granted. We may proceed on the other item on the order paper.
Presentation of papers.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table. Report of the Director of Audit on the audit of the public accounts for financial year ended June 30th, 2022, and the audit report of the financial records of the Kalinago Council for the period July 1, 2017 to June 30, 2020.
Government notices.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to give notice that at a later stage of the proceedings, I will be moving the motion authorization for a loan from the Saudi Fund for Development for funding infrastructure rehabilitation in the city of Roseau, standing in my name on the order paper.
Unofficial notices.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to give notice that at a later stage of the proceedings, I will be asking the question in my name on the order paper.
Questions?
Will the Honorable Minister of National Security and Legal Affairs inform this Honorable House? 1. The legal fees that the government has agreed to pay to the Trinidadian law firms of A. Senior Counsel Israel Khan and or Senior Counsel Israel Khan and Associates, and B. Attorney at Law Keith Scotland to prosecute incitement and obstruction charges against former members of the parliamentary opposition. 2. The legal fees that the government has paid to date to the Trinidadian law firms of A. Senior Counsel Israel Khan and or Senior Counsel Israel Khan and his associates, and B. Attorney at Law Keith Scotland to prosecute incitement and obstruction charges against former members of the parliamentary opposition. 3. The air and ground transportation, hotel accommodation, and other expenses government has paid to date in respect of the Trinidadian law firms of A. Senior Counsel Israel Khan and Senior Counsel Israel Khan and Associates, and B. Attorney at Law Keith Scotland to prosecute incitement and obstruction charges against former members of the parliamentary opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, you'll appreciate this, what should have been a question appears to be a very perplexed essay. And just for the edification of this honorable House. And I think, therefore, in responding to the honorable member, one has to establish the foundation and to put the response into context. This honorable House, Mr. Speaker, is governed by rules, written rules. And I want to draw the attention of this honorable House, Mr. Speaker, to 23, 1, E, and F. And to say further, the rules clearly stipulate the manner in which a question has to be placed before this honorable House. The question draws on inferences, it draws on opinions, none of which is permissible by the rules of this honorable House. Secondly, I can be educated. That's what the House is there for, to edify and to inform and to learn. Mr. Speaker, I would like you to bring to my attention, to draw me within the parent law of this honorable, of this country, where the expression parliamentary opposition is referenced in the parent law of this country, the Constitution. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, if I were to attempt to answer that question, I'd be violating the rules of this honorable House. Another point of significance, Mr. Speaker, the question references Mr. Scotland. I'm not aware that Mr. Scotland is involved in the prosecution of any former member of this parliament. And let me just say fundamentally, Mr. Speaker, we must draw a clear distinction between individuals and the office that they held at a particular time. From my understanding, people were charged privately for allegedly violating the rules and the laws of this country. There's no way on any charge, this is reference, former member of parliament or parliamentarians. This is a day that we should never forget in the history of this country. And second and most fundamentally, I want to refer you, Mr. Speaker, to 24/6. On that basis, therefore, I'm going to decline to answer this question in keeping with the rules that was governed in this honorable House. And therefore, when we put questions forward, we have to be careful that we're complying with the rules of this honorable House. And I believe, Mr. Speaker, finally, I believe if we go to 24, I think it's 6, that if you to the intention, the publication of the information, what does it do to the public interest? And what's the intention, therefore, at the stage in which this matter is before an independent body, the court? And I think we have to be careful with that. This government, in my view, did what was honorable to mitigate against any semblance of political interference by firstly returning through the instrumentality of Impacts CARICOM to bring the best investigators from the Caribbean to investigate the matter. The recommendation from the investigator pointed to a particular course of action to have been taken. Secondly, we brought in independent prosecutors from overseas. That is transparency. and I'm not going to be, I decline answering this question, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, according to the rules, I note that the Minister of Security spoke about the rules, and I'm vaguely familiar with them, but you can help me, right? According to the rules in 23 and 26 24/6 that he mentioned, he can decline to answer,
Yes.
and that is fine, and that is okay. But Mr. Speaker, 23(2) gives you the authority to have strucken off this question and allowed it not to get to the other people. But if you, in your deliberate judgment, you felt that the question was fair, it was written according to the rules and in place, I don't think it is in order for the minister to assume that you allowing the question is outside of your good judgment and you made a bad judgment call, because the question had to be submitted.
Okay, you made your point. Take your seat. Let me just say something.
No, so Mr.
Yes.
Speaker, in accordance to the rules,
Yes.
everything was done
Yes.
in accordance with the rules and with your permission and your deliberate judgment.
Yes, yes,
He can
yes,
decline to answer, and that is fine.
Yes.
But he cannot say that it is out of place to ask. Well, that is up to the Speaker.
No, that is the honorable minister's. That's the honorable minister's opinion. That's his opinion. I'm not going to argue and debate on a member's opinion. This question, I just wanted to inform the House, if you just recollect, this question was asked in the 10th Parliament, the exact question by Honorable Lennox Linton. For me, it was a difficult call because I did not want to appear to be obstructing the question. But the key point, what the minister said in regards to the opposition, parliamentary opposition, that was a difficult one for me. Also, I sought legal advice on the matter, and the question was, and I don't want to comment on what the minister said, that's up to the minister. The rules, he have already said what he said. But the question is, and we do not want to set a precedence for the future where, and I advise in the House now, where matters which are in court that are dealing with private people, but the government is paying. We don't want to start opening a can of worms where if people members come to the House and start asking detailed on expenses, etc. Unless if it is a matter that dealing with value for money, which, for example, a member could point it out to the Public Accounts Committee, in which they can debate and discuss, and if they think there is an issue of value for money, then they could maybe submit a report to the House. But I really don't want us to go down that road where a matter is a private matter, but we're bringing it to the House. But I allowed the question because I think that the member wanted to ask a question, and I think that the Honorable Minister could respond in the way he thinks fit. So it is dealt with. Let's move on.
Statement by ministers. Public business, government business, motion.
Authorization for a loan from the Saudi Fund for Development for funding infrastructure rehabilitation in the city of Roseau. Whereas by virtue of Section 3.1 of the Loans Act, Chapter 6405, as amended, the House of Assembly may by resolution duly passed authorize the minister responsible for finance to borrow money from the approved sources of or guarantee loans to statutory boards or public corporations for the purpose of financing general development in any foreign currency or currencies. And whereas Dominica is highly vulnerable to natural hazards, climate impacts, pandemics, endemic health concerns, and other exogenous economic shocks. And whereas the government has declared its intention to modernize and build resilience in public infrastructure island-wide, including the city of Roseau, in order to ensure public safety, enhance the aesthetics of the country, improve access and connectivity, increase social interaction across communities, and support Dominica's economic development. And whereas progress to achieve this vision has been hampered by a deterioration in government's fiscal position caused mainly by the negative impacts of climate change, the lingering impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic, the current polycrisis, and recent geopolitical events. And whereas the rehabilitation of the public infrastructure in Roseau, in particular, will enhance the city and foster further economic development. And whereas the government of the Commonwealth of Dominica and the Saudi Fund for Development have agreed to enter into an agreement whereby the government of the Commonwealth of Dominica will contract a loan in the sum of 41 million United States dollars, equivalent to 111,392,900 Eastern Caribbean dollars. Be it resolved that in accordance with Section 3.1 of the Loans Act, Chapter 6405, as amended, this Honorable House authorizes the Minister for Finance to borrow a sum not exceeding 41 million United States dollars, equivalent to 111,392,900 Eastern Caribbean dollars, from the Saudi Fund for Development for an infrastructure rehabilitation project in Roseau on the following terms. The repayment period, 28 years, that's semi-annual payments. Interest rate, 2.5%. Grace period, 8 years. Mr. Speaker, over the past 2 decades, this Labour Party government of Dominica has been making a concerted effort to modernize and build resilience in public infrastructure island-wide. This is to ensure public safety, enhance the aesthetics of the country, improve access and connectivity, increase social interaction across communities, and support Dominica's economic development. Roseau, the capital city of Dominica, has been benefiting from these enhancements, including the commissioning of 3 new bridges, namely the West Bridge, the Dominica-China Friendship Bridge, and the Goodwill Link Road Bridge. The reinstatement and upgrades to the EC Lubac Bridge post-Hurricane Maria, a Roseau to Goodwill Link Road and the stadium bypass, river defense walls along the greater part of the river bank to protect the city from flooding, a new riverbank promenade, now the #1 entertainment spot in the city, the multi-purpose hard courts at the Winter Park forecourt to further encourage recreation and sports development, particularly in respect of our young people. Government's vision is to transform Roseau into a modern, green, dynamic, and resilient city. However, progress to achieve this vision over the past 5 years has been hampered by the fiscal challenges emanating from a series of unforeseen macroeconomic shocks. I refer specifically to the massive expenditure to rebuild Dominica post-Tropical Storm Maria and post-Tropical Storm Erika and Hurricane Maria, and to respond to the 2-year COVID-19 pandemic. In all 3 circumstances, government's revenues plummeted while expenditure and debt rose sharply as government acted swiftly to mitigate loss of life and safeguard livelihoods. Furthermore, Mr. Speaker, it was anticipated the world over that once the COVID-19 pandemic was brought under control, the global environment would stabilize and economies would rebound, leading to fiscal recovery. Instead, just as the pandemic was abating, the world was thrown into supply chain challenges and instability caused by a number of new geopolitical events, resulting in scarcity of supplies and high inflation, which has forced this government to implement generous fiscal policies to cushion the impact of residents. Mr. Speaker, notwithstanding the achievements and challenges which I have just mentioned, it must be noted that the roads and sidewalks in the city of Roseau require every urgent attention. As mentioned in the proposed resolution, the government of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, through the Saudi Fund for Development, is prepared to lend to the government of Dominica an amount of 41 million United States dollars, or 111,392,900 Eastern Caribbean dollars, for an infrastructure rehabilitation project in Roseau on the following terms: repayment period 28 years, semi-annual payments, interest rate 2.5%, grace period 8 years. Section 3.1 of the Loans Act, Chapter 6405 of the 1990 revised laws of the Commonwealth of Dominica, amended by Section 4 of the Loans Act number 4 of 1996, authorizes the minister responsible for finance to borrow money for the purpose of financing general development or for other purposes by resolution passed in Parliament. Mr. Speaker, this is a must-do urgent project. The cost of construction continues to rise, and so waiting longer would mean further increasing the cost of the project. Imagine what the cost would have been if we had done this project in 2018 or even in 2020. As mentioned, the Saudi Fund for Development is prepared to give a grace period of 8 years before we begin to pay the principal. We anticipate that by then, Dominica will have its international airport, a marina, its cable car, geothermal energy, several highly patronized hotels and offshore universities, thriving agriculture and manufacturing sectors, among others, thereby resulting in a much larger, more robust and buoyant economy with higher returns to the Treasury to facilitate the debt repayment. Mr. Speaker, I commend the resolution to this Honorable House for approval.
The motion is before the House for debate.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, please allow me to refer to my notes. I want to make sure I don't forget anything.
Permission granted.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, today I stand before you to give my full support for the approval of the US $41 million loan from the Saudi Fund for Development. And I must say that I am particularly excited because this is a long-awaited project, the Roseau Enhancement Project, where these funds will be allocated towards. And this project is a project that has been in the pipeline for many years, before I even entered politics. But over the past few years, I was determined to get this off the ground so that we can finally modernize our city of Roseau. Roseau is the heartbeat of our nation. It is the face of Dominica, and so it must be able to mirror the breathtaking beauty that is found throughout our exquisite island. So, Mr. Speaker, these funds are crucial for the Roseau Enhancement Project, a visionary initiative aimed at rejuvenating our capital city, Roseau. Our goal is to breathe new life into our city, enhancing its aesthetic appeal, fostering economic growth, and providing our citizens with a city that we can all be proud of. This project will allow for the construction of new and covered drains, smooth sidewalks with benches, upgraded lights, widened roads, which will allow for more parking spaces. And it is important to note that this 41 million, which we are seeking to borrow from the Saudi Fund for Development, comes with favorable terms, with an interest rate of 2.5% and a grace period of 8 years, with a repayment period spanning 28 years. These terms will enable us to embark on a transformative journey for Roseau's urban development. The truth is, Mr. Speaker, you cannot get better terms than that in this day and age. We shall have a grace period of 8 years before we start paying back anything on the interest and the principal. And before I delve into the specifics of this proposal, it's crucial to recognize the significant enhancements that the Labour Party government has already achieved in Roseau. Our accomplishments in the city are testament to our commitment to the betterment of our city. The construction of the City Breeze apartments. This government's invested in modern and affordable housing options, fostering a sense of community within the city. Additionally, Mr. Speaker, the construction of new homes and the rehabilitation of several homes on the properties owned by the individuals. The promenade, Mr. Speaker, we created a stunning waterfront promenade, always buzzing on the weekend, Mr. Speaker, offering both residents and tourists a picturesque and vibrant area for relaxation and enjoyment, not to mention the permanent jobs that were created. The Dominica-China Friendship Bridge, symbolizing international cooperation. This bridge has not only improved Roseau's connectivity, but has also opened doors for economic development. I also speak to the EC Low Black Bridge, the Goodwill Link Road Bridge, enhanced accessibility and connectivity for all, facilitating smoother movement within our city, and have become essential parts of our urban landscape. Our Windsor Park forecourt, a hub for sports and cultural activities. This facility has played host to numerous events, invigorating Roseau, including regional and international sporting events. The People's Park Playground, a recreational haven for our children and our families, promoting a healthier lifestyle for our citizens. The stadium and the stadium bypass road. These facilities have boosted sports and cultural activities and festivities, drawing visitors and creating economic activity in Roseau. Also, a river bank defense wall, protecting our city from flooding and safeguarding our valuable infrastructure. And now, Mr. Speaker, the Roseau Enhancement Project. Additionally, Roseau has witnessed a surge in the private sector investments. You will see high-end hotels. In fact, I just received an invitation for the unveiling of Fort Young's reimagined historic renovations, and I say congratulations to them. We also have top-notch supermarkets, pop-up restaurants, luxurious dining establishments such as the City View restaurant and the Realm, which houses about 10 different businesses. All of these have been introduced, creating a diverse and thriving economic environment within our city. Mr. Speaker, as you know, business people are not going to invest if they don't see opportunity. And I speak to the many other establishments which recently opened as well in Roseau, like the Vineyard and Bar 52. The Roseau Infrastructure Enhancement Project, supported by this 41 million loan from Saudi Arabia through the SDF, is the next crucial step in our city's development. This project aims to elevate Roseau's visual appeal, attract more private investments, and to boost our tourism product. Notably, these funds will also supplement efforts for the construction of the multi-purpose entertainment center, which will become a cultural and recreational centerpiece in Roseau. As we press forward with the construction of the international airport, maintaining a certain standard in Roseau is imperative. Our city must be a must-visit destination for travelers, showcasing the best of what our country has to offer, a harmonious blend of historic preservation, business opportunity, and a thriving, healthy living environment. This, in turn, will result in more spending and increased income for our households, boosting our nation's overall prosperity. Honorable members, we know that the Roseau Enhancement Project will revolutionize Roseau by creating more space for commercial activities, encourage more walking, and increase pedestrian traffic. It will allow for better organized and additional parking spaces to alleviate some traffic congestion. These changes will result in numerous economic benefits and a thriving city poised for a brighter future. Mr. Speaker, I welcome this project because Roseau will become more accessible for our senior citizens and persons with disabilities. When it is completed, those who have vision problems as well will be able to make their way through the city themselves. Someone on a wheelchair will be able to utilize the sidewalk from Orchard all the way down to the West Bridge. The mothers who have benefited from my Single Mothers program will be happy to utilize their baby strollers. And the ladies, of course, who want to strut the smooth ground with their heels will be happy that they can walk with confidence, not having to jump over gutters, Mr. Speaker, including myself. Thank you. This loan of $41 million will appear relatively weighty at first glance. However, but by taking advantage of this offer, we can build international relationships that may have far-reaching benefits to our nation. And I remember clearly when the Saudis were walking through Roseau, they were even offering new ideas on how we can further modernize our city. This opportunity presents us with a chance to strengthen our ties with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And I express on behalf of the city of Roseau, and indeed all Dominicans, our sincere gratitude to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. The $41 million at our disposal, when strategically deployed, can be a stepping stone towards deeper involvement in this dynamic partnership, strengthening our position as a beneficiary of Saudi Arabia's support for sustainable development. It is an opportunity that holds the promise of transformative change, enabling us to make remarkable strides towards our national and regional objectives. And in my last budget debate in July, I highlighted the $2 million US or the 5.5 million EC grant committed by the Saudis. But you know, Mr. Speaker, at the time, we were still in discussions about the loan aspect of this agreement. But my eagerness and excitement to share this tremendous opportunity with the people of Roseau, my constituents, was undeniable at the time. In conclusion, I urge you, my esteemed colleagues, to support the approval of this loan. By doing so, we are not only investing in the beautification and the enhancement of Roseau, but also in the economic vitality and the prosperity of our nation. This is a chance to realize our vision for a more vibrant and appealing capital city, a place where residents, tourists, and investors can thrive. Roseau is a unique city, and it is our responsibility to ensure its growth and its development. We remain focused on our path, committed to the well-being of our city and the prosperity of our citizens. And allow me to express my gratitude to the Prime Minister on behalf of the people of Roseau Central for your courageous decision and audacious stride towards our progress and our advancement. We now find ourselves one step closer to achieving our goal of creating the dynamic Dominica. Mr. Speaker, as I end by saying that God is good and God answers prayers. This is a project I've expressed many times that frustrated me, and I fought with this for years. I prayed harder, even with my colleagues, to get this off the ground. but by the grace of God, it is finally there. He has now provided the ways and the means of fulfilling our vision as a government. And so I say thank you. Thank you to the Most High as we make Roseau the most beautiful city in the region.
Mr. Speaker, please permit me to refer to my notes, please.
Yes, permission granted, Honorable Paul.
Mr. Speaker, I wish to give my contribution to the resolution currently before this Honorable House. We note that our reason for being here this glorious Friday morning is so that we can debate whether we should agree to take yet another loan, this time from the Saudi Development Fund for infrastructure rehabilitation in the city of Roseau. Mr. Speaker, having had 1.5 days to review this resolution from AM to PM, with no actual project plan or cost estimate, I must ask the following questions. Is the Roseau Enhancement Project covering the entire city of Roseau, from Victoria Street to Fokole? I stand corrected with the borders, Mr. Speaker. Does the loan amount of $41 million, which is equivalent to 111,392,900 EC dollars from the Saudi fund, cover the demolition and relocation of the houses that will be displaced in the city? Where is the cost estimate for this project? Where is the business plan? To my mind, Mr. Speaker, and based on research, one must present a concrete plan with a cost estimate to be granted for a loan. After all, if we do not know how much the project costs, how will I know and how will we know the amount we need for a loan? When should the major rehabilitation project begin? Should we need to relocate people, have we identified the area that they will now occupy? And have we contacted those persons that would have to be relocated when this project begins? Will local contractors be engaged in this infrastructure rehabilitation project in the city of Roseau? Since you have not provided us with a cost estimate, we are left to make assumptions as it relates to the $41 million from the Saudi fund. Why use all the funds in one location when there are other areas to improve, like the tourist experience and improve the agricultural sector, yet little attention is being paid to them? Why not use some of this $41 million to enhance our agricultural industry? This will increase our economic and improve the lives of our farmers, and this, of course, will improve the export and, Why not use some of this $41 million to enhance our agricultural industry? This will increase our economic income, and it will improve the lives of our farmers, and our export income will increase. This then will assist us in our already huge debt that we are still adding to. Clearly, Mr. Speaker, we here on the other side of the House are totally not against any form of development which should occur in this country. However, we are of the view that there should be some greater level of transparency. Also, a lot more emphasis should be placed on other areas that are also in dire need of enhancement and development. Thank you.
Yes, Honorable Prime Minister.
Thank
You may
you.
proceed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I rise to do two things really. I'll be a very brief one, but I want to say very clearly that I am in absolute support of the resolution before the House today for the approval of a loan from the Saudi Development Fund in the amount of 41 million United States dollars. I first want to express on behalf of the government of Dominica and on behalf of the people of Dominica and on my personal behalf as the Prime Minister of the country to extend our sincere gratitude and thanks to the government of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for this loan. I want to place on the records of the Parliament our gratitude to His Majesty the King of Saudi Arabia, also the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman of Saudi Arabia, His Excellency the Minister for Tourism, and the staff of the Saudi Development Fund for facilitating this loan. Now, anybody who is familiar with international development financing and the terms and conditions that are offered by various international financial institutions, including our regional bank, the Caribbean Development Bank, would know that these are extremely generous and concessionary terms. And I want the average Dominican citizen to put this in their own individual context. You go to the bank to get a mortgage. You may have mortgage rates 7%, 9%, 4.5%, 6.5%, 7.5%. Any percentage point less, could be half a percentage point less, you would save money. And when you talk about the grace period, most banks don't give you any grace period, Mr. Speaker. You start paying immediately from the signing of the loan, you pay your salary deductions. What this loan is saying to us, Mr. Speaker, is that we'll have a complete grace period of 8 years before we start paying any monies back to the Saudi. Now, if you're building a home, Mr. Speaker, you're a businessman, Mr. Speaker, and you get a loan from the bank to invest in your business, and you will get 8 years or even 8 months grace period. You can understand how impactful that would be in terms of your cash flow, in terms of your ability to generate more revenue and income during this period of time. I recall, Mr. Speaker, when we provided loans to public officers and persons in the private sector at 4 and 5%, 4 at the Government Housing and Board and 5% at the aid bank. And I recognize, Mr. Speaker, then that most average house, average size will take about 6 months, 8 months if you have a serious contractor. There's a cash flow is there, access to the materials are there, you can build these homes within 6 to 8 months. But many people who are building homes oftentimes also rent at the same time. So they have to pay the rent and they also have to pay the monthly payments. And so what we did in those loans, Mr. Speaker, that we allow for a 6 months grace period for those loans. So somebody was able to build a home nicely and peacefully without any frustration and anxiety while they were able to pay their rent at the same time. And this is why some, Mr. Speaker, because the banks don't provide grace periods, this is why some people move into the homes before it's completed, because they have to try to avoid the double payments of rent and the mortgage at the same time. And so we have been able to negotiate for 2.5% interest rate and an 8-year grace period, and importantly, a 28 years repayment period. You will not get those terms in many international financial institutions. 28 years. The average you will get, Mr. Speaker, is about 12, 15. And we're getting 28 years. And as the Minister of Finance and the Member of Parliament for Rural Central indicated, the number of investments that are currently on the cards in Dominica ongoing, which all will be completed way in advance of those 8 years, that will allow the government to generate revenues and the country to generate revenues to ensure that we'll be able to pay for these loans. But I want to state to the public as well and to the Parliament, Mr. Speaker, that these loans were not only done because of diplomatic relationship with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. These are very shrewd business people. As a matter of fact, Mr. Speaker, a team came from the Saudi Development Fund and spent an entire week in Dominica conducting their own due diligence, reviewing the scope of works, the costings, walking the streets of Roseville with the engineers and the personnel from the various ministries. But the fund also examines IMF reports, the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank reports. They look at our audits and our debt strategy, our debt repayment plan, and to ensure that the government of Dominica will be in a position to be able to repay those loans when they are due. And having concluded all of those due diligence, all of those investigations, they have decided, yes, Dominica can in fact get the loan, and we can provide these funds to Dominica. And so we're very grateful to them for these most generous terms. Questions have been raised about some people say, well, why don't you use the CBI funds instead of going for loan? But the same people who are saying to us, go and get the CBI funds, are the same people who are engaging in seeking to destroy the CBI. These are the same people who are saying, why are we using CBI funds for the airport? Why are we using CBI funds for homes? Why are we using CBI funds for roads? These are the same people who are saying this. The reality is that there are people, no matter what you do, they will never find reason to support it. They'll never find reason to support it. There are questions raised about houses to be demolished. I want to say to the leader of the opposition that there will be no houses to be demolished in that project. None. There will be nobody who will be required to be relocated. None. And if you ask whether we have cost estimates, we don't only have cost estimates, Madam Leader of the Opposition. We have detailed designs and engineering. But we don't have to present this to the Parliament in respect of a loan. There are separate considerations. And you cannot, yes, you can ask, but that's why I'm responding to her. I'm educating her. So you don't have to present those there. But I can say to you that we have all of those cost estimates. And even when you talk about detailed cost estimates, it is not proper to even publicize them because you have to go through a tender process. You understand? You have to go through a tender process. So we have all of this information. And these documents have been in the public domain for several years now. There were consultations in Dominica, in Roseau, on this Roseau Enhancement Project. And we have articulated a number of concepts of it. This is why we have the Riverside Promenade. That was part of it. The West Bridge was part of it. The River Defense Wall was part of it. And we have it to upgrade and enhance the aesthetics and the ease of moving around the city throughout the city. So we have all of this information before us. All the questions that you ask, those can be set aside because we have the facts and the information to this. But it's not a requirement for the Minister of Finance to give cost estimates of those things. These are for a separate consideration and so forth. So we welcome your questions on areas of concern. I can say to you, let not the heart be troubled. The issue of why the money should not be spent somewhere else. This is always a question people say to throw cold water, as it were, on things. We went to the World Bank and we took a loan of over $67 million for agriculture and fisheries exclusively. And we've been rolling out that investment to the benefit of farmers, putting cash in their hands, putting inputs in their hands, putting farm equipment in their hands, putting boats in their hands and 100 horsepower engines at the back of those boats, investing in this. In 2022, in the peak of COVID-19, we spent $22 million rehabilitating farm access roads in Dominica. $22 million rehabilitating farm access roads. We just gave to the Dexter $5 million to help procure agricultural produce from farmers and to ensure that farmers can get paid within 48 hours of having delivered on the produce. As a matter of fact, Christmas is in November in Pilisufre and Sansove. The government for Dexter went into Pilisufre and Sansove and purchased all of the bay oil that the farmers had at the disposal. And farmers will be walking away next 2 days and they're getting checks today, Friday. Some farmers receiving $13,000, $14,000, $12,000, $9,000, $22,000, $25,000 from the government. Investing in agriculture, investing in agro-processing. As we speak, the government is spending in excess of $127 million on the East Coast Road, improving access to those communities, improving economic opportunities for them in agriculture, in commerce, in tourism. We're spending the monies there. We're investing heavily in housing. We have under construction now 358 housing units across Dominica. So, yes, we're spending money all over the place. But it does not mean that, and let us understand this. Anywhere in the world, Mr. Speaker, the city is like your living room. The rest of your house can be dirty, but once strangers come, all of a sudden, once strangers come, and we take everything from the living room and chuck it in our bedrooms. Because we want the living room to be clean, the front yard to be clean. This is your city, your pride and joy. And so I believe, Mr. Speaker, I believe every single Dominican should be happy and proud that we are enhancing the city. That's where all our tourists come. Yes, they will land at Douglas Charles, but they'll find a way into our city. They'll find a way. And therefore we have to invest in the city to enhance it. And every single Dominican, and the Member of Parliament Rosa Central spoke about the disabled people. We have to create an environment that is welcoming to not only those of us who are able-bodied, who have all our senses or abilities to move around freely, our eyesight, our limbs. We have to ensure that if we're doing things, we need to ensure that we do it for the persons with disabilities. So that someone in a wheelchair can wheel himself through the city. And this is going to even increase further investments in the city. We see in Roseville being transformed by the private sector. People investing their monies. And it's going to enhance the city, create a more resilient city, a more enhanced city. And Mr. Speaker, we will add, you will see in the near future the construction of a new ferry terminal, the construction of an entertainment center, and the entertainment center will involve a purpose-built, a built-for-purpose theater, a recording studio for our young artists, including myself, Mr. Speaker. It will involve a bowling alley. It will involve a miniature glowing golf to create the ambience for families to go out and get out of the homes from the laptops and the tablets and the televisions. Create that atmosphere for us in the city and the country. And so we, and Mr. Speaker, and we've been very careful as a government in terms of our borrowing. Our average interest rate for borrowing is about 2%, Mr. Speaker. We've been very careful with this. We've been fiscally responsible. And notwithstanding the shocks, we continue to be fiscally responsible. Because we believe that fiscal responsibility is crucial for a small island developing state that is so vulnerable to external shocks and natural disasters. At the time of the hurricane, Mr. Speaker, our debt to GDP was 72%. 72% and going down. Coming from a high of 113% when we came to government. That's what it was when it came to government, over 113% of debt to GDP ratio in 2000. And so while the economy continues to grow, and we are containing and managing debt, you will see our debt to GDP going down in the next few years. And what we are doing, Mr. Speaker, we have brought to Parliament here our debt strategy, and our debt strategy includes the setting up of a debt repayment fund. And we intend to capitalize this debt repayment fund to a minimum of $142 million. So you won't be able to touch it until it gets to at least $142 million, so that future generations will have access to funds to be able to pay for our debt, Mr. Speaker. That's what we're doing. So we'll be saving monies to pay even this debt down the road, Mr. Speaker. We've also created a vulnerability reduction risk fund at the central bank. And that fund was created, Mr. Speaker, during COVID. And we started capitalizing the fund during COVID. And once our revenues go back to where it was, we will increase the monthly deposits into this account. And in a short period of time, about 2 years period of time, Mr. Speaker, we have close to $20 million in this fund. $20 million. So in the event that we are affected by a storm, we can draw on this very quickly and take care of ourselves and not rely on friends to come in to give us food and water. We can buy these things for ourselves. In addition to that, annually we spend close to $4 million on insurance for the country. The catastrophic risk reduction facility to cover, so that in the event of a disaster, we can draw on this. So we have 2 facilities to draw on that we're paying for. And once we get better, we're going to increase the amount of monies we put into the Vulnerability Reduction Fund to get it up to $100 million minimum, so that any natural disaster, any external shock, we can draw on this fund rather than borrow it, saving for a rainy day. This is what we did prior to the hurricane. So when Hurricane Maria came, we were able to do a lot of things by ourselves because we had about $389 million saved. And so let us not come here and play games with this. This is a serious matter, Mr. Speaker, of the enhancement of our city and creating that ambience that's required in the city. And we were looking to do it some years ago. Then Hurricane Maria came. We had to put it aside. Then COVID came. You had to use the funds otherwise. Then we decided to prioritize the construction of the international airport. Because that is what's going to bring you, that's what's going to be the real transformative project. This, I believe, Mr. Speaker, that is the project that is missing in Dominica. Once we get this international airport, which we will, Dominicans will see the true return on the investment that we're making over the years. And then you tie geothermal with this to reduce the cost of energy to the private sector and domestic consumers. And then, Mr. Speaker, we're going to move, we're talking to some private people to look at the construction of the ports, both the cruise ship and the commercial port. They're prepared to invest, to pay for it, not a loan to government, and then we pay them from revenues from the cruise ship ports. So no burden on the taxpayers. And so, yes, you know, it is always better, Mr. Speaker, if you don't use loans. It's always the preferred option. But if you're going to go to loans, you negotiate the best terms possible. And I don't think anybody will be able to negotiate better terms than those. But it also speaks to the credibility of the government, the credibility of the country, and your ability to repay. And they look at your record of loan agreements and your record of repayment of those loans. And Mr. Speaker, thank God to the knock on wood, this Labour Party government has never defaulted on the payment of any loan. When Hurricane Maria hit us, and you know, in these international financial organizations, if you're hit by a natural disaster, they don't suspend your loan payments. You have to pay.
8 more minutes.
I'll have enough. You have to repay. Because if you don't pay, if you default on payment out to the CDB and the World Bank, you go automatically into an IMF program. So there are no suspension clauses in this agreement. This is why we're negotiating. And even in this loan, there'll be a clause that deals with natural disaster clause, that deals with if an event we hit, they'll suspend the payments until we get back on our feet. And so we're negotiating those with loans going forward. We're seeking to negotiate with existing loans, but certainly loans going forward, we're putting this on the table. So even when Hurricane Maria hit, member for Marigot, we had to pay the CDB, the World Bank, at the end of September. End of September. And when I went to the World Bank, they were shocked that they got paid. They were shocked they got paid. But I insisted that we have to, not just on the fact that we are affected by a storm, we have to maintain our integrity. That we should not use a storm as an excuse not to pay. And we never asked for debt forgiveness. We never asked for debt deferment. We paid all our debts. Notwithstanding, for several months, we're getting no revenues, no VAT, no import duties. Everything was coming to Dominica tax-free at the time for more than 6 months. And this is why people respect us. And even when we go on to put treasury bills out, we go and raise $20 million, Mr. Speaker, US dollars, on the market. Dominica has always been oversubscribed. More people buy our 90-day treasury bill than that we have to offer. And we have gotten one of the lowest interest rates on record for our treasury bills. Because we are transparent to this. We publish everything. Our debt strategy is published. Our record of debt payment is published. And people are able to read this and say, this is the government, this is the country that they can do business with, because we honor our commitments. And so this is not only great news for the residents of the city of Roseau, but great news for the whole country. And let us not be parochial with this, Mr. Speaker. The city of Roseau is the city of Dominica. I could stand here and say, well, yeah, okay, well, give me half of acres now. I can do things within acres and so forth. Or put some in this, put some in that. It's not going to work. That's not how we do development. Let us focus, we're focusing on fundamental pillars. And pillar by pillar, we've been building the house. So, Madam Leader of the Opposition, we have money for agriculture, as you know. We have money for housing, as you know. We have money for major road infrastructure, and we just received the bids for the Blue Bear to Grand Bacatel Road. I'm hoping that the numbers came within what we have. I suspect not, Mr. Speaker. So there'll be some negotiations taking place. So we have the funds there. From the UK government, we've also contracted a small loan from the CDB to make up the difference, so we can construct this road. We got a grant for the feasibility study for the Melville Hall to Portsmouth Road, and we look towards doing it by phases, because when you drive from Marigot to Borough Square, drive in your mind, and you'll see how many bridges we have to replace. And drive from Bells to Marigot, and you'll see how many bridges that we had to widen. All of the bridges from Roseau to Marigot were single-lane bridges. They all now double-lane bridges, except the one at the end of the fisheries complex, which is part of the enhancement that we're doing with the grant we received from the Kuwaiti Development Fund. And so, Mr. Speaker, all of these things have been done to enhance Dominica's vulnerability and resilience, to enhance Dominica's appeal, to enhance Dominica's attraction. And even when we build the cruise village, there will still be docking taking place in the city, because the cruise ships love to come into a city. It's a unique experience for them to come in. And so this is why this Roseau announcement will also become part of the vending experience, both for vendors and for persons who are patronizing the vendors, so that everybody can benefit from this. And so we do not need to relocate people. We do not need to demolish any homes. We don't need to do any of these things. There we have all of the cost estimates, we have the designs, those things have been shared to the public domain. And so I'm very happy, Madam Speaker, and again, I support wholeheartedly. I will travel to Saudi Arabia next week, Mr. Speaker, and to engage the Saudi government in further discussions. We're having a CARICOM Saudi Arabia summit meeting there, and we'll get opportunity to discuss further development efforts with the Saudi government. They have been in touch with the Ministry of Tourism, the Minister of Tourism, and the Minister of Small Business. They have traveled to Saudi Arabia to engage on issues of tourism development, and so a number of things happen there, agriculture as well, Mr. Speaker. There are a number of areas that we're working with the Saudi government on, and so look forward to enhancing and developing those relations with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And so I commend everyone for the efforts in the public service who played a part in this process of engaging the Saudi government. And here we are, Mr. Speaker, seeking Parliament's approval for a loan of $41 million US, interest rate of 2.5%, a grace period on principal and interest, 8 years, 28 years repayment period, Mr. Speaker. The reality is, it can't get better than that. It can't get better than that. And while we may have suggestions or ideas and so forth, we must not miss the fundamental point of what those funds are being used for. What those funds are being used for, Mr. Speaker, and these funds are being used for to enhance the city of Roseau, to create greater resilience. That's where the majority of the population is in Dominica. And so cutting it and sharing it different parts of the audio. Yes, there are many other things we have to do, Dominic. And until you are dead, you will not stop having things to do. And so every time you do something, there'll always be something to do. But you have to now decide to prioritize what you're doing and ensure that we build the country going forward. And the international airport is on there. And I'm looking forward to the leader of the opposition saying something constructive about the international airport. Because, and let's be constructive. Before I sit, Mr. Speaker, though I haven't heard any member on the opposition say, but I really want to condemn the vicious attack that I heard on Q95 against the leader of the opposition, Mr. Speaker. Brutal, and unwarranted, unprovoked. And I'm calling on every member to condemn this vicious attack by the United Workers' Party on the leader of the opposition. We must have more civility in this country. That if you don't agree with somebody doesn't mean that you have to scandalize the person. But we must be consistent. I know on the record, public record, I have been consistent, Mr. Speaker, in my position on these matters. The problem we have in Dominica is that we tend to want to play politics with these things. So we go around ringing bells, calling for the AG to resign. The same people who are calling on the Attorney General to resign are the same people involved and cheerleading the vicious attack on the leader of the opposition. And Dominicans must be aware of this, and leader of the opposition, you have to be aware of this. Look for your constituency. And I'm saying so to the member for Marigot, because rest assured, they will eat you both like snakes who eat up their offsprings. You understand? They will use you. That's what the opposition is, the Europe is about. The moment they believe they can use you, they'll mash you up. That's what they'll do. And Mr. Honorable Paris, Honorable Henderson, where are your voices? You come here, Jeb, where are your voices? Where are your voices?
1 minute.
Where are your voices? You know, where are your voices? Where are the principles? Where are our values? That the lady exercise her right as under the Constitution to remove a senator who should never be in the parliament in the first place. And you allow people to attack on you. You come to parliament and you sit there. We're not moving a motion to condemn these people. Mr. Speaker, I condemn all of the attacks on any woman in the army. It is wrong. It is distasteful. We have to raise Monsignor. Where are they who want to preach all kinds of things in Dominica? Where are the pastors? But if it's scary to say something, all press release, press statements. They'll go on the what they call in the church and preach from there. The pulpit and preach from there. Oh, scary this, scary that. I mean, the kinds of things. I mean, you swear they will kill somebody in this people's family.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the Honourable Prime Minister be given an additional 10 minutes to wrap up.
I do all that.
Secondly, Mr. Speaker, you can take 5 if you want.
Yes, you need the extra time there. I see you on a roll, but you need the extra time. It has been moved and seconded. The Honourable Prime Minister be given an additional 10 minutes. Those in favour? Those against? The ayes have it.
Thank you.
You are given an additional 10 minutes.
Thank you for your generosity of time. But no, Mr. Speaker, We have to change. This country is too small. If you want to remove a government, you have to go and do your work. But this culture of besmirching the country and besmirching people, it's not right. People forget that they have families, that they have sisters, that they have wives, they have aunts, they have mothers, and their children listening, their children watching. So I hope that the next Wednesday match and the ringing of the bell will be outside Q95 and outside the United Workers' Party's office in Roseau. And I'm hoping to see Senator Paris, Senator Henderson, and Senator Victor. Same thing. Same thing. Yeah. Well, I hope Senator Reid will be there to lead the United Workers' Party out of this disgraceful behavior. Let's have some decency. I thought the question should have been calling on the Parliament to condemn this attack on the leader opposition. Yeah, next one, that's passed. That's been known. Not the next one. Not the next one. You had an opportunity. You had an opportunity. I am calling you when you stand to speak, if you're going to speak, to condemn the United Workers' Party. Condemn the United Workers' Party. Condemn the United Workers' Party. And the leader opposition. Huh? All of them, the same thing. All of them who are walking the street, United Workers' Party is sponsoring. The Q95 is ULP, you know that. But you see, that's the problem there. This is what, Madam Leader Person, only friend you have on that side is me, you know. They have no respect for you, you know. These two have no respect for you, you know. These two have no respect for you. None. Say something. No. They have no respect for you.
Honorable Prime Minister, they are saying that you are casting aspersions. So we withdraw that. Yes.
No, I don't think. No, I don't agree with that. It's a business. No. What's that? Is that what? Oh, what shall do you? What shall do you? I see. Oh, I see. What shall do you? I have absolutely no problem in removing Sean from the Parliament. That's no problem. What we have an issue with is that the leader of the opposition was verbally assaulted, attacked, and nobody except me, has stood in the public domain to condemn the attack on a woman, the leader of the opposition. You're welcome, madam. You're welcome. Only one. No, they can talk. This one, what they want. Oh, you condemn it and so on. No, they must stand principle. I don't know. Parliament is the most important institution in the country, so there's the best place to say it. Best place to say it. And so, Mr. Speaker, this is an important project. It'll have a multiplicity of benefits to the country. The terms are most generous, and it will allow us to complete the project, benefit from it, and have enough time before we start paying the loans, and make provisions down the road, 8 years now, to start repaying the loans. And I think this is a great day, not only for the city of Roseau, but for the whole country. And Dominicans from all walks of life will hail this as one of the most important interventions by this government. Mr. Speaker, thank you very much.
You want this minute?
Yes, Honorable Charles, I recognize you. You may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Please allow me to refer to my notes.
Permission granted.
I Mr. Speaker, it's a very difficult act to follow the Honorable Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerrit, but I felt that I must stand to state that I support the resolution to attain a loan of $41 million US for the rehabilitation of our capital city. And as the Prime Minister rightly said, this is our capital city, the center of commerce for all Dominicans. So all of us will benefit from the improvements in our capital city. Mr. Speaker, I heard the leader of the opposition ask about cost estimates, designs, and plans. Very fair questions. I would like to assure the leader of the opposition, my colleague, Honorable Paul, that this Dominica Labour Party government is the most prudent government to manage the affairs of Dominica. Rest assured that you should be very fortunate, because this is not the time of the United Workers' Party when a loan was taken to build an international airport. Guess what? We are still paying for that loan with no airport, Mr. Speaker. No airport. So, Mr. Speaker, the Roseau Enhancement Project, as you well know, has been on the cards for many years. You sat in Parliament once as a Member of Parliament for Roseau, and you had the opportunity to witness the grand opening of the West Bridge in Roseau, Mr. Speaker. So this is not a new thing, a new project. This has been, we have had cost estimates, we have had designs, but Mr. Speaker, we all know that Dominica's journey has not been an easy one. On our path to greatness, to create a dynamic economy, we have had a lot of challenges. Climatic events, Tropical Storm Erica, which claimed an entire village of Petit Savan. And we had to spend money to rebuild a new village for the people of Petit Savan. Then we had Hurricane Maria in 2017, which wiped out 220% of our GDP. Most people thought that it was going to be over for Dominica. So obviously that would have halted the progress we had started to make with the enhancement of our city, Mr. Speaker. But Mr. Speaker, in the face of all these adversities, we continued our recovery, Mr. Speaker. And within 5 years, people who witnessed what Hurricane Maria did to Dominica, many people, many Dominicans lost hope, migrated. I know a lady from my village who, when she saw the devastation, she couldn't handle it. And she died, Mr. Speaker. Very, very terrible time, Mr. Speaker. Every time I think of it, it's painful. And Mr. Speaker, sometimes we forget where we were, Mr. Speaker. But Mr. Speaker, this government continues, Mr. Speaker. And within 5 years, Mr. Speaker, look at how Dominica looks, Mr. Speaker. People are just amazed at the progress our country has made in a short space of time. And not just progress to repair the damages done or caused by the hurricane, but the major capital projects that we are undertaking including the international airport, Mr. Speaker. $100 million project, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, the international project is critical. And I want us to understand the vision that this government is creating for Dominica. A new international airport, which will bring in thousands of visitors to our shore, will improve on trade, better access to trade goods. Certain goods they're perishable and have to be transported by air. So it will increase trade. It will increase visitor arrivals. We are building a new marina in Portsmouth. Can you imagine how the north is going to look with mega yachts and restaurants and business? And Mr. Speaker, we have the cable car project in the Roseau Valley, which is going to bring in about and help us reach our goals of 1 million cruise passengers. We are going to build a new ferry terminal in Roseau, Mr. Speaker, a new pier. Mr. Speaker, a new vendors arcade for vendors to have a permanent structure to sell their goods in a nice ambience, Mr. Speaker, upgraded. Mr. Speaker, I want us to understand that this is a vision of the Dominica Labour Party government to create the dynamic economy we've promised our people, Mr. Speaker, and we are determined to do so, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, as the parliamentary representative of Roseau Central said back then, when he witnessed the opening of the West Bridge, and our new parliamentary representative of Roseau said in a statement this morning, when we are done with this city, it will be the most modern green city in our region, Mr. Speaker. That is what we are attempting to accomplish. So, Mr. Speaker, although our plans have been interrupted, Mr. Speaker, and delayed, we are ready to commence our infrastructural projects, Mr. Speaker, to continue them, Mr. Speaker, to revitalize and enhance the ambience of our capital city. You know, Mr. Speaker, anywhere you travel, anywhere you go around the world, one of the most important landmarks is the city of a country, Mr. Speaker. And I know that, as the parent from Roseau said, the private sector is making a lot of investments in the city as we speak. You see the many buildings that are going up. And what is needed now in the city is for proper roads in the city, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, tourists come here and they have to put on a feedback form. They walked in a pothole, they tripped. You have senior citizens, the differently able citizens cannot move around freely, Mr. Speaker. They're confined. They have to enjoy the space as well, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, just imagine, with all the investments the private sector is making, and then the infrastructural upgrades that we're going to do in the city, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it will be certainly a sight to behold, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, this is going to reduce congestion, Mr. Speaker, because you heard the parliamentary representative spoke about the increase in parking spaces, Mr. Speaker. And it's not meant for people to just think that we want all vehicles to be parked in rows, Mr. Speaker. That is not the vision of this government, Mr. Speaker. We're really aiming to create a walking city, Mr. Speaker, with electric vehicles, Mr. Speaker. We already have this geothermal project, Mr. Speaker. And what we have done already in terms of concessions, in this honorable house, we have approved concessions for people to invest in vehicles powered by renewable energy. So just imagine when this geothermal plant is ready, Mr. Speaker, we can truly achieve that vision if we have more electric cars in Dominica or electric powered vehicles, Mr. Speaker, and use in the city so people can walk nicely in the city of Roseau, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, but we know that the pandemic and all the climatic events we have faced have caused financial challenges. That is the realities of Mr. Speaker. The goal of this government has always to rebuild Dominica and develop Dominica, but reducing the debt burden that any citizen has to pay. And that is why the international airport will not be a dead burden to the citizens of this country, Mr. Speaker. Neither will be the Marina project, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, we cannot delay any longer the modernization of our city, Mr. Speaker. It is the first impression of many visitors. We get the most visitors by ferry, Mr. Speaker. People think it's at Douglas Charles Airport. It is by ferry, Mr. Speaker. And that is their first impression. And do not talk about the over 300,000 people who will disembark from the cruise vessels, Mr. Speaker. The city is their first impression. And in this day and age, what is the first impression? You have to think about it. You know, sometimes when you see little video of people taking pictures, where's the first area you see them taking the videos of? It's of the city. They go on the roads, they take sidewalks, and they post those videos online, on Facebook and on the social media outlets, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, when how long the project will be? I can't wait for it to start. Within 2 years, Mr. Speaker, this new road, Mr. Speaker, when these visitors return to Dominica and they see the improvements made to Roseau, Mr. Speaker, the infrastructural upgrades made to our city, Mr. Speaker, you can imagine what Dominica's rating will be, Mr. Speaker. They'll no longer have to say it's a broken down, poor city, Mr. Speaker, or poor country, Mr. Speaker, because these are some of the comments that we get, despite all the upgrades we're doing all around the country and all the investments we're making all around the country, because people spend a lot of time in the city and it's their first impression. They sometimes get the wrong impression of our country just because they walk on the roads and they're not used to it, and they get into many potholes and the unevenness of the roads, and they make this statement, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, we have opportunity to change that story about our city. And this is the time, Mr. Speaker. We cannot delay. And, Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister spoke about these great terms, 2.5% interest rate. And I know the Financial Secretary that we have and the Minister of Finance, Mr. Speaker. They don't play, Mr. Speaker. They are hard negotiators. So I know for the Financial Secretary and the Minister of Finance to accept this loan is because they know these are the best terms you can find anywhere in the world. 2.5% interest rate. 8 years grace period, and a 28 years repayment term, ensuring a sustainable financial future, Mr. Speaker. And, Mr. Speaker, I really want to thank the Minister of Tourism from Saudi Arabia, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, for their kind hospitality and their genuine friendship to Dominica and CARICOM, Mr. Speaker. I had the opportunity, along with a few colleagues, to celebrate World Tourism Day with the Saudis, Mr. Speaker, and we had a fabulous time, Mr. Speaker. And one of the things the colleagues will tell you that impressed us the most is the investments they're making in their infrastructure. They have great infrastructure already, but they're making significant investments to improve and build and upgrade and modernize, and that is the same thing we want to do for our people in Dominica. Because in any great economy, one of the most critical signs is your infrastructure, Mr. Speaker. You see it in China, you see it in Dubai, anywhere you travel, you see that key focus is placed on developing your infrastructure, Mr. Speaker. And Dominica will not be left behind. And that is the commitment the Dominica Labour Party has made to the people of Dominica, that Dominica will not be left behind. We will be on the front stage with all developed countries, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, this loan will fuel the growth of our tourism sector, which is already in motion with a comprehensive review of our premium sites. We have the best sites in the Caribbean. Soon we'll unveil plans to upgrade some of our key sites, so rest assured that works will be commencing. We already got the loan to build a new facility at Champagne, which I'm really excited about because Champagne is one of our top 5 spots. It's one of the top 5 sites visited in Dominica, Mr. Speaker. As we spoke about the international airport, the cable car, the ferry terminal, the vendors arcade, the cruise village, Mr. Speaker, which will enable us to reach our target of 1 million passengers, Mr. Speaker. The new cargo port. So, Mr. Speaker, this is a picture of prosperity that will enable us to generate revenue. Because all these projects, these are not expenses, these are investments. Investments in our country, which will enable us to entice investors to come to Dominica and entice Dominican nationals abroad to come back home and invest, because Dominica is headed to our most prosperous days, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I don't want to delay, because you know I have an important day tomorrow, and I know there are other colleagues who want to speak in the House. But I felt that I had to take time to come here to say that I support the investment that we are making in our city. It is not an expense, it is an investment with tangible returns. The transformation of our capital city is a beacon of progress, showcasing to the world our resilience, our commitment to sustainable development, and our unwavering spirit as a people. And I cannot wait for this project to start, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Yes, I recognize the Honorable Octavia Alfred. You may proceed.
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I stand to make a very short presentation as a person from the rural area in Dominica, because I do not want the public, Dominican people, to ever think that this is about Roseau and the environs. This is about Dominica. But, Mr. Speaker, I'm very glad that today almost $200,000 will be paid to oil producers in the Castle Bruce constituency. Mr. Speaker, Castle Bruce constituency is 38.8 miles away from Roseau, the city. Mr. Speaker, as we've heard, when we say the city, we should mean the city, the heart of the country, because the image that the city portrays can determine the impression people get about the entire country. The vibes that the people get when they visit the city can determine whether they embrace or they withdraw from the entire country. As the heart is to the human body, so is the city to the entire country. Mr. Speaker, we have tried to enhance the city by doing little portions, little patches, but I have learned that some things work out easier if you do a complete makeover. I have also learned, and if you have any seamstress in the house, you'll understand that some things cost less if they are done from scratch than if they are repaired. I have also learned that sometimes the relevance, the significance, and the beauty of some things are seen and experienced better if they are just redone. Mr. Speaker, the new face, the amenities, the facilities, the new roads and sidewalks, the transformation of the city is first for Dominicans. First for us, and then for those who visit. Because, Mr. Speaker, Dominicans fall over on the sidewalks too. Dominicans sprain their ankle on the sidewalks too. Dominicans are also people who utilize wheelchairs. Dominicans come to the city to buy. We come to the city to sell. We come to the city to carry out our transaction. So, it's not just about Roseau and people who visit in. It is also about us. Mr. Speaker, we have heard all the benefits to the Roseau, what the Roseau enhancement will do for us. And that's why we need to be more open-minded. We need to be more broad. We must not believe it in a little narrow tunnel about Roseau and those people are wrong, or about who will come. But I stand because I want us to take it Let the people out in Castle Bruce and Good Hope and Dale East and Lapland and all of the people know, even if we're saying Roseau enhancement, we in that too. Mr. Speaker, this is about modern Roseau, as I said, it's about all of us, entire country. And I represent those who live more than 36 miles away. But I support this resolution before the House to approve of a loan from the Saudi Fund for the development for funding infrastructure rehabilitation in the city of Dominica. Because the economic and other benefits that this will bring will overflow. If we're talking about the heart of the city, you must talk about circulate. You must, when you talk about heart, what comes to your mind now? Circulation all over the place. What happened to the foot will depend on what's going on in the heart. So therefore, if we're talking about the heart of the country, we are sure that the benefits will circulate. And those of us who live in the Castle Bruce constituency, 36.8 miles away, we are waiting to enjoy the ripple effects. And as I said, this is not about Roseau and environs. This is about Dominica. So from 36.8 miles away from the city, I support the resolution before the House.
Yes, I recognize the Honorable Kasani Laville. You may proceed.
Mr. Speaker, I rise before you today in support of this crucial investment, the investment for the Roseau Enhancement Project. But Mr. Speaker, before I do so, I wish to follow from where the Minister of Tourism, the Power-Up of Soufriere, left off in speaking of a special day tomorrow, for which I would like to congratulate her for making that bold an admirable step of moving and elevating into a higher realm of grace. So I wish to congratulate her. And Mr. Speaker, while I'm on my feet also, I'm honored to follow my distinguished political mentor, the Honorable Roosevelt Skerritt, because we all witness to that masterclass of a presentation that we just heard. And Mr. Speaker, while we have the pleasure and privilege to be here in this house, we can choose what style or what character that we wish to purport. Because, Mr. Speaker, many of us can come here and ask questions. And instead, some of us choose to be the reincarnation of former opposition leaders and to bring back questions of the past, dead questions. Instead, Mr. Speaker, some of us, like my political leader, would choose instead to use his time on the floor, Mr. Speaker, to admonish firmly and squarely the attacks on a woman, the attacks on the political leader of the other side. Mr. Speaker, that is the humanity that we embody on this Dominica Labour Party side. And in that same spirit, while I was driving and I was driving to the countryside and looking for some type of entertainment, Mr. Speaker, I scanned my radio and somehow it landed on 95 point something, Mr. Speaker. And I was baffled by what I heard. And it is because of that, as a father, as a husband, as a parliamentarian, that I was moved to call the leader of the opposition. I could not believe what I heard. And she may have thought I was calling to ask questions about the former Senator Sean, and I quickly said, I'm not interested in that. I'm just calling to see if you're all right. Because politics is tough, it's serious business, and I'm merely calling to see if you and your family are doing fine. That was it. It took less than 1 minute, Mr. Speaker. That is who we are on this side. And I wish that all Dominicans would come out and admonish the attacks that are being made and hurled at a woman. Mr. Speaker, but in that same spirit, while I express this tremendous compassion for a woman and for the leader of the opposition, I am moved also to do my job. And when I hear the questions that were being put forward today, Mr. Speaker, I must say I am baffled. because this is serious business in this House. We cannot say, Mr. Speaker, that we have just 1.5 days to prepare for this debate. If we are serious about issues of national development, Mr. Speaker, I submit we had our entire lives to prepare for this debate, Mr. Speaker. It's more than when you received this document. And it is why when my great teacher and political leader chooses, and when you watch on this side, you will see, it is one of reflection. People are chosen and selected based on their track record. It is not just random. And what is important for the day? Because you cannot miss high school debate. You cannot miss elementary school debate. You cannot miss Kiwanis Club debate and just expect to just show up and debate in this House today, Mr. Speaker. This is not how it happens. It's a progression. So when I listen to the questions, Mr. Speaker, I must say I am baffled. To suggest that on this side we are tethered to some type of level of disorganization, it is untrue. And I must reject it. Because we could go back to 2005, and I see some pens and pencils up front, Mr. Speaker, and through you, I ask that each one could be distributed to one of them on the other side, and write down physicalplanning.gov.dm. And if they go to the right of the screen, Mr. Speaker, they will see clearly that it has been posted, the Roseau Development Plan. And under that too, they can see the Roseau Land Use Plan. This is not a chaotic government that just wakes up in the morning and says, I would like to obtain $41 million from the Saudi Arabian government, and I'm going to break down houses and demolish buildings. Take a look at that report. And it's interesting who the author is, someone that is generally aligned to you. It's Mr. Isaac Baptist. And in 2005, he presented this detailed 383-page report, the Roseau Development Plan. I urge you to look at it. And if you all are paying attention to issues of national development, you all would know that exists. Since 2005, you cannot just wake up and come in this House and just say what you want and ask questions for which we have already submitted and published the information a long time ago. Roseau Development Project has been going on for quite some time. And if you go closely into the exhaustive list of the important projects that form part of this project, the pillars of this project, you will see many of them come from that initial document that guides our policy. It's an interactive document where people were interviewed. The macroeconomic landscape of Dominica was evaluated. We were able to observe the challenges that we had back then, and to observe and project the opportunities and leverage on that. And that is our guiding principle, and that is what we are doing. So to come here and just say we're going to mash up houses and break down houses, and if that is going to be done, go back to the document of 2005. Mr. Speaker, we must be serious in here. And we must ask ourselves, what side of history do we want to be on when history is recorded? Like many of the great civilizations of the past, Alexandria and Persia and Babylon, Mr. Speaker, many of them, that was the heartbeat of these countries and civilizations. Why should we not have our own? In the same way, in Rome, Mr. Speaker, in 753 BC, when Romulus, Mr. Speaker, and Remus, Mr. Speaker, when they started that great civilization, Mr. Speaker, we also too have to do our own. And history will record this great Dominican Labour Party as the party and government on record, Mr. Speaker, who did that firm and sterling job to rehabilitate our city, Mr. Speaker, and restore our pride, Mr. Speaker, in our great nation. This is how we'll be recorded, and you have a chance. The speakers who have not yet gone, you have a chance to be associated with history on the right side. This is your opportunity. Don't lose it. Mr. Speaker, we're grateful to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for allowing this $41 million to allow us to enhance the city of Roseau. And for those on the other side asking as to why this is the source of funding and all these strange questions, why not? Why not access a loan facility with very low interest rates and favorable lending terms? Why not? Why not? Why not, Mr. Speaker, should we access financing from Saudi Arabia? A very stable government, backed up by tremendous oil reserves and resources. A country that is very well diversified in terms of its economy, Mr. Speaker. We're a government in the same spirit, showing our tremendous diversity in all aspects. And this is what we're doing. And Roseau is important to us. So that's why we should probably even stop calling it Roseau Enhancement Project, but Dominica Enhancement Project, Mr. Speaker. You heard Honorable Alfred expressing the importance to her people who are so many miles away. We all benefit from that. That's how important this is. We can see the heavy mix of usage in Roseau in terms of locals, the pedestrians, the tourists, and so on. If we just go back to a week or two ago, and we saw the droves in which foreigners and people, our good citizens living in the diaspora, descended upon our great city, there was no space for a pin or a fly. We were packed. And we need to improve. We need to build on these opportunities that we have in our great city, Mr. Speaker. And we all see that with the ferry terminal, what happens? That when these ferries come from the French islands, the neighboring islands, it almost seems that it's two Boeing 747s descending on us at the same time with 300 plus visitors all at the same time. How can we not support a new and improved and enhanced ferry terminal? How can we not want that gateway for the influx of so many tourists and visitors and returning Dominicans? How can we not stand and proudly boast as being facilitators of that? What side do we want to be recorded on? Mr. Speaker, this is a crucial time for us. It's a tremendous opportunity for economic growth and enhancement through this project, providing jobs and facilitating continuous commerce, business in the city of Roseau, Mr. Speaker, providing employment for many. And I know that our many skilled tradesmen in Mao constituency, if I may, I know your Roseau people might get jobs first, but please allow me to get at least 50 to 100. So it will provide employment for the locals. Just 50 to 100, I'll be okay. Yeah, we'll share. Mr. Speaker, and also too, we can see that we have some challenges in the infrastructure in Roseau in terms of the sidewalks and the crossings and the access and a few dilapidated businesses and so on. Delaying this or deferring this development, Mr. Speaker, will have severe implications on drainage. When it rains, we understand the hydraulic and hydrological challenges that we have in a city that's near sea level. How can we reject improving that and enhancing that? How can we be against that? And to do it subtly, you will stand and say you're not against it. But to do it subtly is the same thing. And as Minister of Health, Wellness and Social Services, Mr. Speaker, and at this time I will let everyone know that Dominical Association of Persons with Disability celebrated their 40th anniversary of existence this year. And as we align with our SDGs, as a government, I am reminded, Mr. Speaker, of Goal 10 and Goal 11, which speaks about equality, Mr. Speaker, and which speaks about sustainable cities. And that is what we're trying to do, removing the barriers of access and accessibility. This is what we're about, and all of this will be achieved through this project, this wonderful enhancement. This is what this is about. Mr. Speaker, we have a remarkable opportunity before us today, and I'm strongly urging all Dominicans to stand in support of this tremendous project. And I really wish to congratulate in a remarkable way the leadership exercised by the PAL rep for Roseau Central in pushing this forward, this project forward. I remember, I know I took the oath, I'm not supposed to give cabinet's business, but I think she may have alluded that one time, that she called the pastor in one day, that if there are any chains, she called the pastor in so we could break any possible chains. That's the level of interest and involvement of this great PAL rep that Roseau Central has. So I ask that we all stand in support and solidarity, Mr. Speaker, as we continue to restore our pride, this city of Roseau. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Senator Paris, I recognize you. You may proceed.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. I rise to share some brief comments on the resolution before the House. I had a lot of notes and with a lot more questions and following up from where the leader of the opposition left off regarding the discussion on the resolution. Many of those questions were addressed, and I'm not in the practice of beating a dead horse, because you won't get much further than that. But I want to address a couple of things, Mr. Speaker. One, and the Minister of Health alluded to it earlier on, and we thank you for that, sir. We will go and look on this side. And we will confirm later when you bring us in and you give us the rest of the information that the plan that you alluded to is the same plan that we're using. And we don't need to necessarily get some addendums and some changes and so. It's been improved. So is it the same one or is it a new one? But we'll get to that. But thank you for that information. It is difficult to support if you don't have information. And the Minister of Health spoke a lot about, go and look for it and stuff and stuff. But he told us the stuff is improved, so it might be a little different. So even if we had it, we would still have the wrong thing. Any form of development in a country, Mr. Speaker, is a breath of fresh air. It's necessary, particularly sustainable development. Sustainable development that touches all the people in the country at every level. Focusing on your fiscal responsibility, focusing on your environment, your health, the quality of life, and the standard of living of your people. Sustainable development that targets and takes hold of these aspects, critically important. But sometimes that's not what we see. Maybe it's because we don't have all the information, but the Minister of Health, in his deliberations told us we can go and find it somewhere. So we will look. And the head of government also addressed a number of questions as well. But it's going to be important. If you want people to support what you do, you have to give them the right information. And maybe you might get them on your side. Maybe you might get them to champion your own cause if they have the right information. So people wouldn't have to come and ask questions and you say, we have the designs and we have the cost estimates and we have all of those things and we have all of those things. But we don't. So are we expected to come here and just vote without the information? You would find that responsible? Absolutely not. You're my colleague, I know you better than that. You wouldn't find that responsible. You don't expect individuals to support you if they don't have the information. Because how do they know when it changes? So, you agree with me, right? We need the rest of the information. Is the same information? The updated version that you have? The updated version you talk about, that's what is there? All right, thank you, Minister of Health. I appreciate that. Mr. Speaker, the other thing that I want to touch on, again, the Minister of Health, I almost thought he was a Minister of Works, but that was a long time ago.
From college?
Yeah, very versatile, but you might be in the wrong position. But anyway, we'll deal with that. Mr. Speaker, well, that you see, that's not what is required. Agility is for something else. It's for sports. Mr. Speaker, we cannot continue to turn our country and the young people of our country, a country filled with skill set, a country filled with capacity, and turn them into a bunch of hewers of wood and carriers of water for foreign agencies. We have to find a way to put our people back to work so that we do not sit by in our country, a very liquid country, and watch development happening and not be able to participate. The people of each of these constituencies should know that they come first, and that monies that their children have to pay back 28 years later, that they themselves would have benefited from it now. Not just to see the building and to go there, but they would have been able to financially improve themselves, empowering themselves and their children to make sure that when the debt is called, that we will not be able to default, because we have empowered ourselves during these development processes. That is not what we are seeing in recent times. And I beg you, fraternal brother, I beg you, say a word for our engineers and our contractors. You, say a word for them. Before you were in there, you know about them. Say a word for them. Because we cannot have friendly governments that are willing to fund and invest in our country. And we cannot say to them, hey, at least this percentage, might not be 50, might be 35% of the work should be handled by locals. We cannot have friendly government. They would be willing to hear that from us. And if we have a problem with the locals, we should empower them. We should help them to build themselves up. But more than that, Mr. Speaker, while we have these projects going on, we should partner them and pair them with these foreign agencies that we have to ensure that they can learn and grow and make it a requirement, so that we do not use the excuse of incompetence to not empower our people. It is wrong. And whether we're using loan money, or whether we're using CBI money, Dominicans must benefit from their own resources first. And it must not be at the lowest level possible. It can be at the highest levels too, because Dominicans have the capacity to participate in the building of their own country. Sure. We've done it before. And yes, it is modern times, so help them to grow. Don't criticize them and say they're not taking action, they're not educated, they can't manage money. Help them to do it better, because the Dominica that we are building, we cannot be building it for foreigners. We have to be building it for Dominican and Dominican children. So my plea and my beg, let Dominicans, put them back to work in this process. Ensure that our truck drivers and our carpenters and our contractors can pay their loans at the credit union, so that the credit union can continue to and lend to other people. that they can continue to service their debt and send their children to school, and that young people can begin to find and see a future in their own country and not be beady eyes, waiting and looking for opportunities outside of their country. Development is good. Infrastructural development is good. But Mr. Speaker, it must be sustainable. And the rising tide that is supposedly lifting the boats here in Dominica should lift all the boats. Mr. Speaker, before I sit down, I don't often, I shouldn't say I don't often, I very seldom agree with the leader of government, but on this one I would like to agree with him. And condemn the vicious attacks. The vicious attacks. The vicious attacks that has been leveled on the leader of the opposition. Well, I don't know them. I heard them on the radio. So if you know who they are, we can talk. You don't know who they are? But I didn't hear you say that either. I didn't hear you say that either. So you want to put words in my mouth that you don't want to say, but it's all right. Mr. Speaker, but that's not the point, you know, because Minister of Health we are fraternal brothers, so, you know, that's all right. But the vicious attacks on the leader of the opposition, wherever they came from, is unacceptable. It's unacceptable. It's unnecessary. And she suffered those attacks for exercising her duty and her right, and something well within her right as a creature of the Constitution. She was attacked by several people and groups of people without even having all the details, without having information. It is something that we do in Dominica that is not right, and it has to stop. And Mr. Speaker, while I'm on my feet too, I also want to condemn the unacceptable behavior from our Attorney General. He apologized for it, but you know, and from the Minister of Education for the unacceptable things that they said. But I never call a name, you know. But Mr. Speaker, I think I was on my feet to condemn attacks against women. Is only one set of women, one set of things I must condemn, or I must condemn all? On the same opposition leader and her candidate for president. The same opposition leader and her candidate for president. We don't have such short memory. We remember, right? I condemn it too, Mr. Speaker. It is unacceptable. And it is not right. And if we're talking about unity in a Creole country, and we're talking about not trivializing issues and not politicizing all issues, when it comes to the issue of protecting our women and children, I think that is a place we can unite. I think that is a place that we can all condemn violence, abuse, and verbal attacks on our women. I think that is one place that we can rest and unite. I live in the Mao constituency for the longest while. I asking you to teach me and you're not there. So when you come back to the Mao constituency, you'll teach me a little Creole and we'll talk. No, I never say he was the pal rep. I say, well, come and check me if you know where I live in. Let me talk some Creole. Mr. Speaker, I wanted to condemn those attacks, and I wanted to endorse the idea that that is one place that I think us as a country can unite and we can rest on that level playing field where we decide to protect the people of Dominica at all costs and on all sides. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Speaker, I hadn't intended to say anything, but I cannot allow what was just said to pass without a response. Firstly, before I get to that, I want to place on record my unreserved support for the resolution and for this loan that the government is going to enter into with the Saudi government. For all the reasons that have already been articulated by those speakers who have addressed the House before me, I really adopt what they've said, and I don't think I need to repeat it. I think the benefits are plain. Mr. Speaker, on Drumstick Gate, this nonsense that has been around for the past several months, I've said very little because I felt it, I made one comment, and even that was misconstrued. The Senator just said, I apologize. I would encourage him to revisit the statement that I made. Nowhere in that statement do I take the view or express the view that I said anything wrong. Quite the contrary. I repeat here for the world to hear and for you to hear that as far as I'm concerned, what I said was totally and entirely within the bounds of the English language and the proper use of the English language. So let's remove the ambiguity. What I said, because I had communications from certain people, is that some individuals may have felt that they were offended, and if that's the case, that was not my intention, and therefore I sympathize with their sensitivity. In respect to this House, and what I really thought was commendable of Senator Paris, to put his toe into the water hesitantly, with great reluctance, the Prime Minister dragged him over the line to actually articulate some support, some empathy, some semblance of protection or request for it for the Leader of the Opposition. But that is totally and utterly different. Even if you want to criticize what I said in the House, it is a totally different thing from what is happening on the radio in respect to the attack on the other people. So you shouldn't water down the support that you're giving to the Leader of the Opposition by including whatever you feel about what I said. In local parlance, we often say apples and oranges, but we can say grapefruit and avocado. It's totally, totally different. There's no comparison. So, Mr. Speaker, I think it is important, and it was important for me to say this, we have to understand and we have to distinguish between manufactured crises and issues and real issues. The issue in respect to the Leader of the Opposition and her exercise of her constitutional right is totally, totally different and unacceptable. That was directly and deliberately geared towards attacking her and her personality, etc., etc. What I said, and indeed you and all the members of the House sat there. Nobody rose. Nobody rose to say to the Speaker that they wanted to interject because, as they often do, I was imputing improper motives or any of the other things that people often said. You all sat there and you understood precisely the context within which I was saying what I said, and you were not offended in the House. You subsequently, when Bozo said what he said, you followed that and went down the road, and that's where you ended up where you are. But Mr. Speaker, I just wanted to make that point, that I said what I said. I had no intention of offending anybody. I think it was very clear to anybody who was in the House what I was saying, and a metaphorical reference cannot be raised to the same level of deliberate, outright and uncalled for attacks on a member of this House and any citizen for that matter. So, Mr. Speaker, with those few words, I resume my seat.
Right to reply.
Yes, Honorable Laville.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. I rise in accordance with the standing orders 42, right to reply, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, 42, right to reply. What exactly you want to reply to or respond to?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, the suggestion from Senator the Honorable Delbert Paris that I and further the government do not advocate for the employment of local contractors, where I particularly was named.
Well, under 42, it would be the mover of a motion. You can maybe rise as a minister seeking to clarify.
So, Mr. Speaker,
So I would allow you to clarify or to respond as the honorable minister.
So thank you, Mr.
Yes,
Speaker.
but the standing order you quote is the wrong standing order, but I'd allow you to
I
respond.
accept clarification, Mr. Speaker,
Yes.
and I'm grateful for the
So
opportunity.
just 2 minutes to respond maximum.
Yes.
And I don't want us to go in a back and forth, so after I respond, we'll proceed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I appreciate the opportunity granted. And Mr. Speaker, the utterances are completely false and disingenuous, Mr. Speaker. And in my stint as Minister of Public Works from 2019 through 2022, more than 90% of our projects were in fact tendered, and that would have been captured in the audit report. And most of these contracts that were granted would have been to local contractors and consultants and or contractors who are locally registered. To suggest, Mr. Speaker, that we are advocating instead to provide work for foreign contractors is completely false, Mr. Speaker, and the assertions by Senator the Honorable Delbert Paris is completely unacceptable. All I hear are just words, wither of words at the loom of the mind, but not from the heart, not tethered to the truth, Mr. Speaker, and these actions, they must stop and they must cease immediately, Mr. Speaker. We stand for the people of Dominica. We stand in solidarity with the hard-working people of Dominica. And as a DLP government, we seek to elevate them from tier to tier, as highlighted and prescribed clearly in our DLP constitution, Mr. Speaker, dating back to the 1950s. And we continue to stand for that and advocate for the improvement and the elevation of our people. That is what we are about. And we do not waver on that. Our leader does not waver on that. He has not for over 20 years. He has not. So this is wrong. It must be rejected, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Yes, Honorable Blanchard, you may proceed. I recognize you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Before I begin, can I seek your permission to refer to my notes as well, please?
Yes, permission granted.
Mr. Speaker, I feel obligated to stand in support of this important resolution which is currently before the House. As the parliamentary representative for Roseau North, the Minister with responsibility for commerce, and a former Minister of Public Works, today this is an exciting time for me. Yes, Mr. Speaker, the Roseau Enhancement Project, which the government started a few years ago, is definitely a project which has been touching the lives of every Dominican, every resident and business, not just in Roseau and environs, but I say everyone, and yes, sir, including my dear Roseau North constituents. One can recall when this government came into office, there were only 2 bridges connecting Roseau to the north of the island. Now, we have 4 expertly and properly designed safe bridges for the convenience of our people, the residents of this country. This government, this Labour Party government, is working and building Dominica for Dominicans. And Honorable Senator, I'm referring to what you said. We have witnessed large investments of this Labour Party government with the construction also of several river walls to protect residents and businesses in Roseau and in Pottersville as well. One can recall the extent of damage caused by flooding to Pottersville and Roseau during Hurricane Maria, while also we acknowledge today that the risk of flooding in those areas is much reduced thanks to the hard work and successful implementation of impactful projects by this Labour Party administration. More recently, we have seen the city come alive thanks to the vision and hard work of the parliamentary representative for Roseau Central. And with these new entertainment areas, such as the Roseau River Promenade and the Windsor Park multi-purpose court, both of which have brought direct and indirect benefits to the residents and business of Roseau, and I say Roseau North people as well. So, Mr. Speaker, hearing that this project is going to be accelerated is indeed great news. Mr. Speaker, this government has never lost sight of its goal to transform Roseau into a vibrant commercial center where citizens can create employment for others and others access new jobs in new and innovative areas. Using Honorable Paris' statement, this Labour Party government, Honorable Paris, is building Dominica for Dominicans. Mr. Speaker, this government has never lost sight of the goal to transform Roseau into a vibrant commercial center, You know, Mr. Speaker, apart from the obvious economic benefits associated with this undertaking, which I will touch on briefly in a moment, this project holds special significance for me. I had just entered the cabinet in December of 2014 when the Roseau Enhancement Project began taking shape, and I was heavily involved in that project as Minister of Public Works and was overseeing the first phase of that project. So, Mr. Speaker, I understand the background and the objective of this Labour government to transform Roseau into that modern, aesthetically appealing center where trade can flourish. Mr. Speaker, today we are presented with an opportunity, a chance to not just repair the wear and tear of our city, but to revitalize it. This loan from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is not just a financial agreement. It is an investment that represents the start of real progress and development in our city. For cruise visitors, as we all know, Roseau makes our country's first impression. We are the nature isle, but when passenger vessels dock at our main ports, it is important that they are greeted with an attractive city and sites that entice them to get off and explore. Mr. Speaker, we talk about the conversion factor when we speak about cruise ship arrivals. The conversion factor being that once cruise ship visitors come to our shores, they love what they see, they fall in love with our country, and then they return as long-stay visitors so that we all can benefit. Mr. Speaker, again I say, this Dominica Labour Party is building Dominica for Dominicans. Mr. Speaker, I understand that cities can be engines of growth. They are the center of trade and can stimulate urbanization, which means opportunities for new investment, increased populations, more jobs, and more money flowing in the economy. This loan from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia will fund the creation of jobs across sectors, from construction to retail, in technology, and certainly in tourism. Every service rendered, every product sold will contribute to growth of this, our economy. I envision that our city will become a magnet for trade, a center for innovation, and another demonstration of the resilience and determination of our people to achieve and succeed. Mr. Speaker, this
this is about more than just fixing roads, This is more than just about fixing roads, buildings, and gutters. It's about laying the economic foundation that will bring prosperity to every corner of our city. It is about creating an environment where small businesses can blossom, where entrepreneurs can be innovative, and where our youth can find jobs that will keep them engaged and invested in the future of our country. In short, this is an investment in the well-being of everyone who visits, resides, and conducts business in our city or near our city. There is no doubt that this government has been making tremendous investments, Mr. Speaker, in the development of new, modern, and resilient infrastructure, including in our city. We have been creating a new look Dominica that citizens, residents, and visitors can continue to appreciate. Mr. Speaker, when I was preparing my presentation, I thought that I couldn't fathom that anybody could oppose this motion, but obviously I was wrong again, sadly. And so, Mr. Speaker, I want to implore us all, those are the sound of hearing the sound of my voice, that we all embrace the long-term vision of this government for the city of Roseau and Dominica by extension. This is another progressive undertaking, adding to the major projects already underway to change our fortunes and place this country on a sustainable growth trajectory. Mr. Speaker, this is an investment in our infrastructure, and I dare say this is an investment in our people and the future stability of our country. Mr. Speaker, I would like to take a moment to remind our businesses and residents of Roseau who will be inconvenienced by the works which will be carried out that this project will transform your living and business standards. So you should embrace it, notwithstanding the sacrifices that you may be called to make. A safe and more attractive city will mean more patronage in the city by residents and visitors, coupled with increased business opportunities for our people, of course, ultimately leading to more money in our pockets. Let's add Roseau enhancement to the International Airport Development Project, the Cabritz Marina, the Geothermal Energy Project, and the Cable Car Project. Again, all innovative projects led by this forward-thinking and industrious Labour Party government. I want to say something to my dear constituents in Roseau North. Be assured that I will keep abreast of this project and its developments, because I know that there will be opportunities for you. I will certainly be looking and will be working with my colleague, Minister for Housing and PAREP for Roseau Central, so that I can secure some jobs for you. Again, Mr. Paris, Senator Paris, we are building Dominica for Dominicans. And Mr. Speaker, before I move off on that project, I want to say to the Senator, while we sat at the groundbreaking ceremony for the Chinese-funded schools, which includes the Goodwood Secondary School, a number of persons from Roseau North had already been employed by the Chinese contractor as associated with the Goodwood School. In addition, I have received and I have names that will be passed on to the Chinese through the Ministry of Education and Public Works of a number of young persons, both male and female, who have reached out to me for employment on that school. And Mr. Speaker, I stand with no doubt that I am sure a number of them, if not all of them, will get positions at that school. Also, Mr. Paris, sometimes we have to ask questions as opposed to making blanket comments. Based on the information that I have received from the Ministry of Education, not just laborers are going to be employed on that project. A number of service providers have actually been in touch with the Ministry of Education, and some of them will receive contracts to provide services on that project. At this point, Mr. Speaker, I must admit that I am confident that the motion will find favor with my colleagues, and I think both sides of the House. I'm going to say that still. Prime Minister doesn't agree, but we will see. Mr. Speaker, I am confident that together we can set the stage for a new day of opportunity right here in the city of Roseau. And so I say, today is a Roseau Day. I look forward to the new look Roseau, and I know that you do too. With these few words, Mr. Speaker, I wholeheartedly support the motion.
Yeah, before Minister, just point out, just remind members, when you are referring to members, if they are senators, you know not to say Mr., call him senator. And if it's a minister, you refer to the minister based on his portfolio. And if it's a PAL rep, you say the member for whichever constituency. I don't want to obstruct your flow, but yeah. Yes, Honorable Minister.
Okay. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I promise I won't be long. I'll just close up because a lot has been said before, and I would rather not be repetitious here. But just to emphasize, Mr. Speaker, that we cannot just look at this loan from the Saudis just in terms of the Roseau Enhancement Project. It's beyond the Roseau Enhancement Project. This is part of the comprehensive approach that this Labour Party government has been put in for the development of this country. So to think of these funds, why it's not put elsewhere, we have funds elsewhere already. So this is specifically for the Roseau enhancement part of the development for our capital and obviously the country by extension. And we must appreciate also the timing of this. I mean, we all know Roseau needed a facelift. We had to do things for Roseau. But the timing, previously we had these climatic events, so this couldn't be done. Then we had COVID and we had the war in Ukraine. But now is the exact time that we can do this. And now, let alone from that point of view, but from the point of view that if we were to delay, the cost of this project, Mr. Speaker, would be tripled and it'd just be too much. It'd be astronomical. So the timing is excellent in the sense that we've put funds in other places and we have other development projects. All our productive sectors have been financed. And then now it's time to fix up our city, our capital. So it's a matter of putting all the little bits and pieces together. That's part of the puzzle. So we cannot look at the Roseau Enhancement Project and this loan in isolation, which is what I think some of the opposition members have done, and just see it in isolation, but it's part of a bigger picture. So that myopic view, you might see it in isolation, but if you just pause and you reflect and you see what the government has done in terms of the international airport, the marina, the hotels, the roads, our housing, our education program, and here comes our city program. So everything, and in terms, if you are concerned about debt, sustainability, and how do we pay this back, this is where all these productive sectors in the next 8 years, which is the grace period that we have, will be able to help us to pay back these loans. And that is very important because, Mr. Speaker, it can be very misleading that the public just listens and say, well, we're taking another big loan and how are we going to pay it back? But the public must recognize that we have 8 years grace period. And important, as has been said by the previous speakers, the concession, the terms and conditions, 2.5%. It doesn't get better, Mr. Speaker. And then we have 28 years. So when all these different productive sectors I've mentioned, that increases the whole economics and the buoyant economy of this country, that is where we are able to pay back these loans. So we cannot and we must not look at it in isolation, and the public must be totally aware that we have a plan. It's part of the bigger plan of the development of the country. But now is the time for Roseau, and now is the time for Roseau. We've been doing so much in housing. As for agriculture, we're putting so much in agriculture. The Prime Minister mentioned this as well, and all the other speakers mentioned it in terms of our housing stock and just how we, it's just so many things going on. Our tourism product, all our hotels that we're building, the international airport, I said it once, I'm going to say it again, because this is really an important part of the whole development project for Dominica on a whole. And then also, all this, the amount of money that we're spending also, whether it's in the roads, whether it's in the money we have at the aid bank for entrepreneurship, because we know entrepreneurship is what drives an economy, So even the small and the micro business, we haven't left out those things. And then 27 million, Mr. Speaker. So we have to look at those things. And we have to recognize that, yes, we are getting this loan, but we have got financing for other areas. So this is specifically for Roseau. And this is not a loan to develop the whole of Dominica, which would be very misleading if the public were to think so. So I just want to clarify that point. And then we must not see this, as I said before, I'll say it again, in isolation. It is part of a bigger picture. But what you have to appreciate, first to have part of this bigger picture, it must be a government that is pragmatic and that a government that is planning. We could have taken this loan maybe, a few years ago, but a few years ago wouldn't have made sense. So we have to be pragmatic in our approach, readjust, and now is the time we can do it, because now that we've dealt with the other sectors, now is the time for Roseau. So, Mr. Speaker, with this, I would just say that I'd be happy if this House could approve this loan. It's meant to really develop not just the city, but the entire country, as I've said before. And you have to recognize also, Mr. Speaker, that you don't get such loans if you don't have the credibility in the national circle. So it's because of our credibility and our transparency and our prudent management of our finances, that is why we can afford to have such, that the Saudi fund can actually give us this loan. So it's, I think it's a win-win for everyone. I think Dominicans should be proud that their city will get a facelift, and that would definitely add to the whole economics and the whole development of the country. So with these few words, I am very happy that we can approve this loan here today and move forward with the development of this country of ours.
This concludes the debate on the motion. I will now put the question. Be it resolved that in accordance with Section 3(1) of the Loans Act, Chapter 6405, as amended, this Honorable House authorizes the Minister for Finance to borrow a sum not exceeding 41 million United States dollars, equivalent to 111,392,900 Eastern Caribbean dollars from the Saudi Fund for Development for an infrastructure rehabilitation project in Roseau on the following terms. Repayment period, 28 years, that is on a semi-annual payment basis. Interest rate, 2.5%. Grace period, 8 years. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. The motion has been approved.
Well, Mr. Speaker, with the approval of the motion, we are seeing the dynamic Dominica unfolding before our very eyes. And I gave the country the assurance now that we have secured the funding for the Roseau Enhancement Project. My entire focus will be on the cruise ship village with new piers and also a modern cargo port. Both ports will be next to each other, so we'll be reclaiming land, and I'm hoping that very soon that we can unveil those two projects in the country.
And also the international airport.
The international airport is on track. The international airport is on track. They are on schedule. They are on schedule, Mr. Speaker, and I think that we, by the end of next year, you will see even greater manifestation of its movement.
Okay. What about the geothermal? I spoke to the minister this morning.
Yeah, the geothermal, the geothermal is on track. We have gotten the financing for the transmission lines from Loda to Fokole. We are finalizing the agreement, and in the next couple of weeks we will certainly be in a position to sign off with the partner on the construction of the geothermal plant. Work is ongoing there as we speak, and we had the donors conference here a couple of weeks ago, and we have gotten some firm commitments from IRENA. As a matter of fact, I will be going to COP28 in Dubai at the end of this month, and we'll have discussions with IRENA where we may sign an agreement with them for a significant financing of part of the geothermal project. These things take time. You are set back by external shocks. You are set back by the current realities in the world where everybody's attention is the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Then you have the conflict between the Palestinians and the Israelis, where the world is focusing attention on those areas. And it's a matter for us to keep pressing on. I think Dominicans have to appreciate that the world today is more difficult now than it was 15 years ago or 10 years ago. The impact of climate change is significant, and you see in countries which never knew flooding, they're flooding. The countries which never knew of storms have been subject to storms. So this is becoming a global challenge. And the reality is the developed world will want to treat with the issues before they treat with ours. And that's a fair action on the part. But we're going into COP28 with some pessimism, but some optimism. It's an injustice that's been meted out to us as developing countries, and we cannot give up. We have to persevere. So we in CARICOM are going there with all guns blazing to represent the Caribbean people at COP28 at the end of this month. But the reality is this is a challenging world, very challenging world, with all of the geopolitics taking place. But we are very grateful that we have very good relationships out there that we have been able to cultivate and nurture. And those countries are looking at us, whether it's the European Union, whether it's the United Kingdom government, whether it's the US government on the security side, whether it's the government of Japan on the side, the government of the People's Republic of China, our dear friends the Venezuelans, even if they had sanctions, but they still looked out for us, and especially in difficult times. Whether you're talking about now we have this excellent relations with Saudi Arabia, or even Qatar. We're in touch with Qatar, and Qatar will be sending a team to Dominica very soon to explore opportunities of investments in Dominica, so we're in touch with them on this. And of course, the United Arab Emirates, whom we have able to develop some very good relations with. And we have the international development banks, whether it's the World Bank or regional CDB. So it's a challenge. With your cost of running the country increase and your revenues affected, obviously, from time to time you'll have issues of payments. It's similar to how we run our families. If you get in an extra allowance and the allowance doesn't come a particular month, but your expenditure remains the same or it increases, you'll be owing somebody. You will not be able to pay them the full amount that you're able to pay them. But we are persevering, we maintain prudence, responsibility, and it's left to all of us in the country to play our part in ensuring that we can build this country. So there are a number of very critical, important projects taking place. I think if all of these projects are able to come to fruition, and we're confident that they will be, we can see dramatic opportunities for permanent, sustainable jobs in the economy. And all of its hotels, you can appreciate these hotels are completed. And they can attract people to come in, international airport. I believe our challenge with air access can be addressed in a significant way with the construction of the international airport. While we wait for the completion of the international airport, which will be towards the end of 2027, 2026, we are also extending the runway, and that is nearing completion. We had to do this, and I liken it, Mr. Speaker, to you build a new home, but you have your old house on the side as you're still sleeping in. And you have to keep it comfortable while you construct your home. And so we are building international airport, but we have to sustain the investments we're making, sustain the direct flights from North America, and to even increase them. We have to take measures for in the interim. So that when the international airport comes, you transfer those flights from Douglas Childs to the international airport, rather than not investing now and waiting for the next 3 years for you to start discussing and getting those flights back on track. Because there is a demand for flights into Dominica from North America and elsewhere, And I believe that with the extension of the runway based on the request of the airlines, we are confident that we can sustain what we're receiving now and certainly increase upon what we're receiving now. So there'll be people who will look at this and say that it does not make sense to invest in the extension of the runway, but you build an international airport. You have to do this to sustain what you have. Because if we don't, because of the alignment of the runway, the low clouds that we get, and the rain that we get up at Douglas Charles, this is why we had a significant number of cancelled flights. The plane coming into Dominica, they can see the airport, but they can't land. And how do you minimize, if not eliminate, that occurrence? It is through the extension of the runway, and that is never accomplished. Now, these are funds that we could have used to pay off people we owe, or to do something else. But you have to invest to make. And if we invest now, we'll certainly make. And by making, you increase your revenues. Because the World Bank did a study, their own investigation, and they looked at the hotels that were nearing completion. And they indicated that those hotels can bring in an estimated $40 million into the tax revenues for the country. But of course, COVID came, affected travel and leisure dramatically, and I think we're bouncing back and so forth. And within hotels opening, hotels under construction, the roads are being improved, the other investments making in training of people. I think we're getting somewhere. The massive investment we have in agriculture, and of course we're having a ceremony this afternoon at 3 o'clock to recognize farmers across Dominica, agro-processing. One of the things that Dominicans don't pay attention to, which is a major contributor to the economy, but because it is so informal, it is not being recorded in our statistics. Small business and agro-processing. So we export a lot of stuff, agro-processed stuff, but it goes as personal luggage, and it's not captured in the statistics, and therefore it is not impacting the GDP. I have always maintained that our GDP is way higher than it is reported. Even agriculture's contribution to the GDP, it is not captured, because the average huckster will tell you he's not making money. And he underreport what he's exporting and so on. And we don't keep proper records at the ports. As a matter of fact, there's a gentleman at the statistics department, Mr. Dick. Having heard me criticize the statistics report, because I don't interfere with it, they went and they did their own investigation.
Well, Honorable Prime Minister, I'm just allowing the Prime Minister to just give an update. Or remember, the resolution was passed, but I think we had a good debate there today, and let's just build the camaraderie, so at least, we can, like I see in England, questions passing, people discussing. So, Prime Minister, yes, I give you the opportunity.
I appreciate that, Mr. Speaker. And so he went and he did his own investigation, and he selected about 7 or 8 agricultural commodities. And in some cases, Mr. Speaker, he found out in his report, in his own investigation, that there are some items that were underreported by as much as 110%. So we're exporting way more than was being reported officially. And one can appreciate, so when we say agriculture is bringing in $240 million, I am confident that agriculture's contribution to the economy of Dominica is close to $400 million. But it's not been captured because of the guys live the Marigot port, they live the Ansley port, they go to the Saints, they go to Guadeloupe, they go to Marigallan, so it has not been captured to an extent that it is captured. They don't properly record it at the ports of departure. So a number of things. People sell cocoa sticks, they sell coconut oil. Where's the parallel for Peebush? They export this stuff, but they send it to the aunt in Guadeloupe. Now, the aunt in Guadeloupe sells it. This is 10,000 euros, but it's not captured as foreign exchange coming in. You understand? It is not captured in the statistics because it is personal luggage. So there are a number of things that we send. We sell honey in dramatic quantities out there, but it's not captured in terms of the export, Mr. Speaker. And so we have to really work on improving our data collection. and statistical information so that we can have a true appreciation for what's happening in the economy. And the reality is, most people who are self-employed will always tell you that they're not employed, because we have a culture of working for somebody. That's how it is. So most people who are working, I'm not working, but you have a shop that you own. You're a huckster, you're a farmer. The average farmer will tell you he's not working because he doesn't understand that he's working for himself. He's self-employed, and so forth. So there are a lot of positive things happening. Yes, the world is challenging. Yes, the government itself may have challenges with its revenues from time to time, and this may impact that. But we can't contest the fact, Mr. Speaker, that we are making strides. And for us to, in this current global environment, for us to be pursuing the international airport, the largest infrastructural project in our history, I believe, Mr. Speaker, that people must not look at me, people must not look at the government, people must wrap their consciousness around the national flag and support this project. Because at the end of the day, that project is going to help and benefit every single citizen. Because so forget about who is doing it. Forget about which party is doing it. Let us recognize that this is going to be an airport for all Dominicans. All of us will want to go through there, and all of us will go through there. When we're building the stadium, people criticize the stadium, it was going to be a white elephant and so forth, and we go and watch international cricket. We go and watch international football at the stadium and so on. So we're all making use of it. So let us fight the politics, but not on critical economic and social issues. Mr. Speaker, this is an important day for us for the approval of this loan, and we look forward to the procurement process. There'll be a procurement process. We're hoping, if we have time, if we're able to finalize the agreement with the Saudis, that the Minister of Finance will be accompanying me on a trip to Saudi Arabia, that he may be in a position to sign the loan on behalf of the government and people of Dominica while in Saudi Arabia. If not, we'll arrange a ceremony for here in Dominica to have it signed. But so I commend the Minister and of course all of us who have contributed on the Cabinet for agreeing to approve this loan. And of course, I'm sure that the Member of Parliament for Roseau Central and the constituents of Roseau Central are all elated that finally, after so many years, we'll be able to finally secure the funding for this component, because we've done other components of it. I don't want to lose sight of it. We've done other components of the roads enhancement project, and the roads really need revamping and so on. And we're hoping that the electricity company and the telephone companies can collaborate with us, because the whole idea, as part of it, is to have all of these telephone lines, electrical lines underground. But we understand capacity issues, so we're not going to hold back the project to wait for that to happen. So we'll move ahead with improvement of the sidewalks, cover all of the drains. So all of the drains and roads will be covered. So there'll be no more smelling in the drains, no blocking of the drains, complete surface, public infrastructure, benches and so forth. We can sit, and we're gonna, in this project, what we're gonna seek to do also is to see how we can help address the issue of parking in the city. There may very well be parking meters in the city to alleviate parking in the city and to also raise revenue to pay for this loan down the road. So you can choose to park in Pottersville, you can choose to park in Newtown, but if you're going to park in Roseau, you're going to have that paid. And I'm saying to the business people who have always no parking and keep clear, you'll be required to pay something so that...
It's not an opportunity to clap, just an information. Other members can even ask a question. We just on a relaxed session.
Yeah. So you will be required to pay for those low parking signs and those clipless signs, because we have to maintain the roads. We have to maintain the roads. We have to maintain the sidewalks. We have to keep them clean. And we'll also be purchasing industrial equipment to do the vacuuming of the street, because that's part of the decay that causes the decay of the streets and so on. So we'll buy proper vacuums, It only bars broom, Mr. Speaker. It'll be still that people can sit on. So, so Masquerade in town will be driving on this thing to clean the city and so forth, vacuums and power wash thing to clean. And one of the things, Mr. Speaker, my only appeal to Dominicans is this concern. We have to learn to appreciate plants more. I find in Dominica there's a tendency for us to, when we see a plant, we like when we cut it up, when to break it, take a branch. You know, if you're taking a branch, take a little branch and go and plant, but don't destroy it. Let there be some greenery in the city. So I'm hoping that we can have some landscaping done. There's some soft plants that we can use that wouldn't harm people when they walk in and so on. And so when you look at Great George Street, and you stay from Orchard Restaurant, and you watch down towards the West Bridge, you can see nice plants that can provide shade to the people and so on. So let us not break a branch. So we planted some palms on the bayfront. I mean, if you want a palm, go and get a palm somewhere else. But don't try to pull out a palm and try to see you're going to plant it at your home. It will not grow because you took it away. You see. So let us love plants and and maintain the aesthetics, the beauty of this place. So it won't only be concrete, but we're going to put some furniture, some landscaping, so that when you go to the UK, you go to New York, and you go to Florida, and you see some of the plants, and you go to countries that have no water, but they have beautiful plants in the Middle East and so on. We have God-given lovely temperature here and rainfall and soil. Let us, each business place, enhance the aesthetics. So we look forward to this implementation of the project in 2024. And I thank everybody for their contribution.
Yes. Yeah, your mic is on.
Okay, I move that the House be adjourned. Sign it aye. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to second the motion.
It has been moved and seconded that the House be adjourned. Sign it aye. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. House is adjourned. Sign it aye.